As we go through our life, we choose and we have many choices to make. And particularly yesterday, as I saw the youth group and see how they're growing, and as I see Ariana growing into like a homegrown child from Bridgeway, graduating and entering into adulthood, and organizing this froshy drive-through graduation party, I realized that many people are on the stage of deciding things and choosing what they want to be, and to define themselves, that this is me, this is who I want to be, and this is what I want to portray, and this is what I want to possess, or these are the skills that I want to have. There was a famous chef by the name of Anthony Bourdain, and I'm sure many of you know of him and about him. He was a celebrity chef, and as these days, being a celebrity chef is lucrative and is a good business. And you have people like Gordon Ramsay and Jamie Oliver, all competing for airtime and an audience. And Anthony Bourdain not only was a talented chef, but he's also a talented presenter. And he had many shows which I enjoy watching. I didn't watch too many, but I just always found him to be an interesting fellow. And the part that I really want to share with you about his life is how the quote that he shared. And he famously once said that your body is not a temple. It is an amusement park. Enjoy the ride. And if you missed that, I'm going to say it again. Your body is not a temple, but it's an amusement park. Enjoy the ride. So he chose to see and define himself as an amusement park. So when he looked out into the world, what he saw was things that he can enjoy, the things that will bring pleasure for him and enjoyment for him and immediate gratification. And one day at the age of, I think it was when it was like 61 or 62, the enjoyment, the life of amusement park and enjoying the ride type of fast life quickly ran out, and he committed suicide. I don't want to, and I'm not demonizing Anthony Bourdain for committing suicide, and I'm not here to criticize him or bring him down for that. But I think what I want to make 2 points. One is that what you put inside into your life will be determined by how you define yourself. Whoever you want to be, you will stuff things from life that fits your own identity. That's one point. That you will put into your life, you will gather up, and you will copy, and you will envy the things of the world based on who you define yourself to be. If you define yourself as a temple, then you will gravitate towards the things that fits into that temple. If you see yourself as a fun house, a place where you're built for enjoyment and pleasures of the world, then you will fill that house with the things that fits the theme. That's one thing. And second thing that I want to share with you is that against his own desire and his common sense, one day the amusement park, the fun house theme life ran out of fun and enjoyment. So we're left with the question, who am I? And how should I define myself? And what defines me? And what do I stuff in my life with right now? When you look into the world, what are the things that you want to copy? And you're envying. Inevitably, if you are envious of the things of the world, whether it's how beautiful someone looks, or what they're wearing, or how their body looks and how they reveal their body through various social media forms, you will continue to put those things upon yourself. Do you see yourself as a mannequin? A simple tool, lifeless tool, where you put on clothes and display so that others may be interested and purchase what is on you? And do you get meaning out of that life? Are you a piggy bank where when you open it, there's nothing else in there but money, and that's what you're living for? And as you grow older and as you make choices and as we live our life, we will inevitably fill our soul and our life with the things after the image that we have created for ourselves. Are you an image of God that leads you to live a life of a temple in holiness and sacredness and freedom? Or are you something else where it promises you so much, an amazing success, an amazing attention, an amazing immediate gratification of look at me, look what I have, look what I look like, look how much I can reveal myself physically or emotionally. And at the end of the day, will that give you true joy? Or will it just give you a lot of enjoyment for the time being and leave you feeling empty at the end of the journey? Israelites made that choice. They came into the promised land and they were in a transitional stage of their life. And they came in and they saw the world which they walked into. And they saw that Midianites or any other Canaanites living in the promised land, that they were powerful, culturally advanced, and they were numerous, and they had horses and chariots, they had fortresses, and they had fancy jobs and amazing technology that as a wandering people of the desert that they did not have. They were largely ranchers or shepherds. They didn't possess weapons of war. They didn't possess great paintings and poetry and wonderful clothing and fancy temples that Canaanites had. They just really had a tent which they worship God. And no doubt as they saw that, they envied and they feared and they wanted to copy what they saw as they enter into the promised land. Rather than being salt and light and affecting the people and the world that they enter into, they saw the world and said, I want that. I want to be like you, and I want to copy you. And they began to copy, and they began to do the things that they do. Pagans were famous for surrendering their body for pleasure. And I won't go into the details because we have a lot of kids here, and it's PG-13 kind of sermon every Sunday now. But they were famous for surrendering their body for pleasure. They were famous for surrendering their body to pain. And they were also famous for surrendering their babies for human sacrifice and whatever else. And they began to follow these practices because in order to be like them, you had to live like them. Not only envy, but you have to copy, and you just bring into your soul, into your life, and into your eyes, and into your mouth, all the things that they were doing. The result of idolatry was that God surrendered Israelites to Midianites, because that was the contract, that you will be a blessing as long as you're with me. But if you forsake me, if you forget about me, if you walk away from our relationship, all of these blessings and protections will be no more. And you will be eaten, you'll be swallowed up by people around you because they are more powerful than you are. They will determine your future. They will determine the quality of life. And that was the deal. And as they forgot about God, they entered into that deal. And the Midianites took notice of Israelites who were copying their lifestyle, and they didn't want them. You know, in high school, when you see, we have this natural, almost a hatred for people that we call wannabes. And they want to be cool. They want to be, I don't know, athletic and they want to be in a circle of popular kids. And when Midianites saw Israelites living a life of a wannabe, they didn't take their gestures kindly. Every harvest season, they would come and take their grain. Every time there was any wealth and food to go around, they would come only in that time and take everything away. And in this story, we see Gideon working with his grain, and he was separating the grain from the shell, the outer shell that protected it. And typically, what people did to separate the grain out of his shell is to take it into a big open space where there is no obstruction. There's nothing blocking them. Not mountain, not a building, not a wall, not a tree. And they would go out into the field where everyone can see, and they would beat it with a stick or roll a big stone around it over and over until the inside grain was revealed. But we see Gideon not doing that. We don't see Gideon doing working on what they call a threshing floor, where they thresh the grain and they beat the grain, or they ran over the grain with a heavy stone. But he was in a wine press. And to give you a little bit of a history lesson of what wine press was like, it was a much smaller operation. And what you had was a big bathtub. Okay, so really big bathtub, if you will. And it was sunken into the ground, and you dump all the grapes in it, and you step on it so that the juice will flow down into different smaller bathtubs, and you would make wine or drinks out of that. Obviously, to separate the grain from the shell is terribly difficult to do it in a wine press, because you need the flowing of the wind to catch the shell and let it fly away. But wine press was sunken into the ground, and his efforts would be doubled or tripled. But that's the only solution that he had, because he has to do it in hiding, not in an open space. Because if Midianites saw him working on his grain, no doubt they would come and they would beat him and take his food away. So Gideon was hiding, and that's the place where he encounters an angel of the Lord. An angel of the Lord basically says, I have chosen you to rescue Israelites. And this is what Gideon says. Oh, you know what? I heard about stuff like that. I heard that back in the day, God actually did stuff. That God actually rescued people. And there's a story of crossing the Red Sea. But where is he now? What is he doing these days? That all our enemies have taken over, and we live like this. I work in a wine press. Because one, there is no wine to go around, and two, because this is the only hiding place where I can get some food. Where is God? God has become just a little story of the past. Great, amazing stories of the past, but nobody were experiencing God here and now. Can't blame Gideon, but he felt intimidated by the invitation to rescue Israelites. And to make the long story short, if you want to know the details, come to Live Devo and we'll kind of have an extended discussion on this. But he tests the Lord in two ways with the fleece. One was just make the fleece wet. In the morning, dew settles onto the ground, but I just want the fleece to be wet, not the ground. And Lord performs that miracle. And it says, oh, don't be upset. Okay, that was a nifty sign, but I really need to make sure that this is you, not the fleece, not like the wool being like super water absorbent, like paper towel and just absorbing the water around it. I want you to do it the other way, where the fleece is dry, but the rest of the ground is wet. And Lord performs that miracle as well. And Gideon, he was encouraged by these signs, and eventually he gathers 22,000 soldiers. If you remember the story of Barak from last Sunday, Barak went out and he gathered 10,000. Gideon, he got 22,000. A timid, cautious Gideon that God has chosen. A doubtful Gideon now has been fired up to gather 22,000 people. This is a big difference from a guy who said, I'm the least of my clan. My clan itself is the least out of all the other clans. But somehow he overdoes Barak and he gets 22,000, and the Lord says, you have too many people. So you have to turn away anyone who's scared. So about 50%, 12,000 people, they turn away and they say, you know what, Gideon, I came here because you're exciting. The ideal of fighting was great, but really I'm just too scared. I don't want to fight. I'm going to go. So Gideon said, okay. And he's like, okay, I have 10,000. Still the same number as Barak. So this is still a good game. But then the Lord says, we still have too many. Because I don't want you to go into a battle and come back and say, we won this battle because we were good and we were numerous and we were powerful. So the Lord gives him one more test to weed out the people so that he would know that the Lord is at work. Not weapons of war as Midianites had. Not the numbers, the power that comes from the size of the soldiers, which Midianites boasted. But God wanted to make sure that Israelites knew that they do not have to copy or envy what Midianites had. That the story of God was not a fairy tale. The story of God was not for the people of the past, but same God is still covenant with them, still loyal, faithful, and is still a living God. And he will use the weak, foolish things of the world, the things that are not like the world, to redeem them. So the final test was lead them to a river, to a watering hole, and get them to drink. And anyone who lapped the water, drank the water like a dog by putting their face right into the river and drank, they were cut. But anyone who scooped the water and brought it to their face and drank like a human being, they were invited into the battle. The final number was 300. And I kind of chuckle to myself every time I read that, because there was a movie called 300. They lost, but this 300 soldiers, they won with the help of the Lord. And the details of the battle, I will not get into here. But what I want to emphasize here is this, that Israelites did not have to copy the ways of Midianites. God didn't invite Gideon to make weapons of war. God did not choose a charismatic, powerful, bold leader. Rather, he chose Gideon, who was happy to go into hiding and double and triple and quadruple the effort of his work, separating grain from the shell in a wine press. He was okay with Gideon, who said, well, good story, Mr. Angel. Where is God now? I'm the smallest and the least. We're nobody. But God chose those things of the world. And he chose the little faith that Gideon had. The faith as small as a mustard seed. And he grew that faith with his power and with his faithfulness. If I minister before you because I felt that I'm a great preacher, which I'm not, or I'm a capable leader and administrator, or campaigner, or someone who's charismatic, I don't know if the Lord would want me, or I don't think so. And I think this is what the story tells. I think this story and the Bridgeway story is that God chose the least things of the world, and he brought them together to worship like this, faithfully being reminded and not being folded and stomped, crushed, but not forgotten. You know that song in the verse, and that we are being used by God just the way we are, but we must participate into his story. The story of God choosing the foolish and the weak things of the world to shame the strong. How does this impact the way you define yourself today? The way that you and I naturally want to envy and copy the strong things of the world, the things that brings pleasure into the world. Don't you want to be a giant, great amusement park? That is the greatest temple we have today. Just think about it. There's nothing greater in size and money. Think about the Disney films and Disney World and Disneyland and whatever parks. They own us. And we want to be like them. But at the end of the day, will you end your life as a Mickey Mouse? Would you end your life as a lifeless mannequin where you just simply put clothing and jewelry on, but really inside you are lifeless display of a thing? And that's what we will have when we don't have God and live our life as a temple. Paul reminds us that, don't you know that you are a temple of God? If that is the case, what should be in us? Are we a piggy bank that has, when you open it, there's just nothing but money, nothing but treasure? Or are we a temple of God where we have Jesus Christ in us, who says, I will take you as the smallest thing, weakest thing, foolish thing, and I will use as a salt and light of the world. You will dissolve into the world and you will bring life. And I will bless you to be a blessing. This is pandemic, and I know you're struggling, I know you're weak, but I will use you as a blessing. Do not be afraid. Do not copy the methodology and the ways of the world, because I am with you. What I'm inviting you, or what God is inviting you, all of us, is that we become a contrarian in this world. Contrarian is a big word, but basically you live the opposite way. And my favorite celebrity movie star is Jackie Chan. It has been for the longest time, and he still is. And I still think Jackie Chan should have played Frodo in many of the movies, and Black Panther and Captain America and everything else. Iron Man, even better. But Jackie Chan lived a contrarian lifestyle because he had to compete with Bruce Lee. And he said in one interview, if Bruce Lee kicked high, he kicked low. And if Bruce Lee got kicked in the face and he made an angry face, what he did was completely the opposite. If he got kicked, then he would rub his face and he would let the audience know that he's in pain. He said, I had to do everything the opposite way of Bruce Lee because he was so high and he was so powerful. I didn't want to be him. And I think there's a wisdom in that for Christians, that we live a contrarian lifestyle. Don't compete with Bruce Lees of the world. Don't compete with what is powerful, wealthy, and it's amazing. Because inevitably that funhouse lifestyle, that mannequin lifestyle, and that piggy bank lifestyle will leave you empty and lifeless. We must live a life of a temple where Christ is in us. Just one more example, Chick-fil-A. The first time it opened up in Toronto, I was in downtown for something, and I said, great. My kids tried Chick-fil-A when they went to Syracuse or Pennsylvania the previous year. And I'm like, they enjoyed it, I'm gonna pick it up. And I went and it was closed. And I just smacked myself in the forehead and realized it's Sunday. They don't open on Sunday. They live a contrarian lifestyle. That Sunday in North America, and I'm sure the rest of the world, is a day where they make the most money as a fast food restaurant. But he said, no, people must rest. That's what God wants. And we must give people time to worship their God, because when the owner and founder and CEO, I think his name is T. Cathy, when he worked as a dishwasher, he had to come into work on Sunday, and that just displeased him because he wanted to worship God on Sunday, and Sunday was a day of the Lord. And when he opened up his business, he said to himself, that is the gift that I'm going to give to every single employees. And although their franchise fee, if you want to run a Chick-fil-A, is 1/10 of the price of all the other franchise that are out there, but it's so competitive because what he's looking for is not people who wants to make more money, but put God and people and blessing people first. So I want to ask you today, what is inside of you? What are you becoming? Look at the things that you have on top of you, and things that you do and things that you portray into the world. Are you becoming a mannequin where you're just revealing what you look like? Are you more of an amusement park? Are you a piggy bank? What are you? God has chosen the weak things of the world so that we may not boast. And this salvation is by faith. And through faith that we become saved. And through faith, we become the temple of God. And through faith, not of the merit and copying the world, that we experience the blessings of God. And through faith, the small mustard seed of a faith will grow and will give life and the blessing to ourselves and to the world. I invite you to live life for Christ and Christ alone, and taste the blessing and eternal joy that comes by having Christ in you and living your life as a temple. Not being envious of the world, not copying the pleasures and quick and the fast ways of the world, but surrender that life. Surrender that control over to God, that you may truly experience the love and faithfulness and the blessing that He has in store for you.